up. Okay. All right. I'm here with Crystal Jackson at Houston County High School. So we can just get right into it. So prior to becoming a school library media specialist, what did you do?
I was a classroom teacher for 15 years, taught all levels of elementary school, kindergarten through 5th, homeroom, everything. My last 5 years in the classroom was a kindergarten classroom. I left the district briefly to go to a different district. I had 2 media centers, an elementary and a middle school. So I served 2 schools.
Awesome. What inspired you to pursue a degree in school library media?
For me, professionally, I have a constant need to grow and learn and venture out. I taught in the classroom, and I'm also very aware of my needs in terms of professional.
Mm-hmm.
I get very stagnant if I'm not careful. I like to always be challenged. We talked about this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
After being in 3rd grade classroom for so long, I needed something drastically different. And I was either go to an elementary, kindergarten classroom or a middle grades classroom because I needed something really different to push me out of my comfort zone so that I could continue growing. Very much use technology, always have, even in the early stages of my career, even when technology wasn't as prevalent and used, I always tried to pull technology into my lessons because I know this is what our children are using daily. Right. This is what's going to pull them in. This is what's going to engage them. So I've always used technology and utilized it as best I could. Love reading, love teaching reading, love reading instruction, love books, you just name it. So it's kind of like a perfect combination. It was just the next logical step for me.
Good. Where did you receive your training and degree?
I actually did a non-traditional kind of route, if you will. I was, of course, an elementary major, so I taught in the classroom. And then my master's and my specialist were both curriculum instruction, management, administration, that. So because I had the curriculum instruction technology, I had gone through and taken the assessment for library media, thinking that my certification would follow because of the degrees that I held, but it did not. So I ended up finishing everything for the master's and the specialist, and then completing the assessment, and then going back to VSU for the endorsement or the add-on certification.
Right. Is there anything that you did not receive either in your educational program or field experience that you wish that had been included?
Actually, let's see.
There might be anything that you've run into in recent years.
Okay, so, well, truthfully, what you prepare for in college is always going to be different than what you actually face. And just in the, let's see, I was a media specialist in a different district for 3 years, and then here for 6 years. Just in the 9 years that I've been in a media center, the position and the job and the duties and the requirements, it has evolved so much, you know. In the beginning, you know, I circulated books, I managed a collection, I maintained a website, very infant stages, but then now I manage our social media, which is really kind of like public relations and promotion and those kinds of things. I maintain our website, our digital collection, which I didn't have a digital collection. The digital collection wasn't really something that I had access to when I first started. So it has evolved so much. Now I am kind of like I've always kind of been the face of your troubleshooting and helping with technology. Hey, how would you use this? Those kinds of things. I've always been that kind of support, but it has evolved to the point that I actually kind of do a lot of tech team, technician kind of things too, in support of our one-to-one initiative. So, right. Sorry, I didn't answer your question. So were there things that I didn't get trained on in my program? Absolutely.
Yes.
And I think that's going to be the case. The same thing with your classroom. As a classroom teacher, my classroom, my coursework, it prepared me to survive, but the classroom is really what taught me how to teach. Yes, and the same is true for library media.
What professional organizations are you a member of?
Georgia Library Media Association, Page. I always read like the publications for the School Library Journal and things like that as well. So,
How do you determine the collection needs of your library?
well,
We've been talking about
I actually
that.
just talked about that. I do title-wise analysis so I can see where my collection stands, and then I always try to use the curriculum guides that our teachers are using, which, as you know, change every 5 years. Well, you're still kind of new, so yeah, it's very cyclical. It changes. We're getting ready to go into a new LA set of standards, so I'm going to use that along with my collection analysis to see where we have some gaps.
Right.
I also
Where your
try to
needs are.
get feedback from my teachers so that they can tell me, hey, we really need this or that or what have you. I take a lot of suggestions from our students because this is their space.
Yeah.
If I want them to use our
Those
space,
are the ones who are using
I
it.
need to provide for them what they're looking for, so.
What's your background in technology prior to becoming a media specialist?
As a classroom teacher, I had Smartboard way back when Smartboard, before we went in my previous school, in my previous system. You had to write like a grant or you had to write a proposal or something for how you were going to use it because that's a lot of money and they weren't going to invest the money unless it's something that you can get a return on your investment. So I always wrote for everything, and this is back, gosh, I started teaching in 2000, so not too terribly long into my career, just so that I could have the technology. We used it in the classroom daily, so ever since the very beginning for me, in every capacity that I could, so.
What role do you play within the school as far as technology specialist? And I've already seen that some today. But
Yeah, well, I offer support to the students as well as teachers sometimes, just front line of defense, just because our technician serves our school and
others.
I think 3 other schools maybe, so they're not always here. That kind of thing. And as far as Chromebooks, we do troubleshooting to see if it's something that I can help them with. If not, then I give them a loaner and send it off for repair, so.
As far as reading for pleasure, what genre do you enjoy the most?
My favorite is just romance, obviously.
The
I
best.
also, I also enjoy realistic fiction. So, the only genre, sadly enough, that I don't love is fantasy, and it's just never really been my thing. I've tried to like fantasy. I don't love fantasy. So, however,
There's some that I'm the same way, but I've read several fantasy. Sarah J. Maas. I've read several of hers recently, and I've really enjoyed them.
One of the girl who was here yesterday, the lady who was here yesterday for her observation, she also suggested, so I have got to try, I've got to try that one out, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll definitely give fantasy another go.
Yeah. Always gotta give it another go.
Yeah.
What role do you see the school librarian and the school library playing in the overall reading program of the school?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
What role do you see the school librarian and the school library playing in the overall reading program of the school?
It really kind of depends on how involved you want to be. Relationships foster conversations foster reading. It just does, because if you can share with someone what you care about and they can share with you what they care about, then you have those conversations and you build relationships. And I will see kids in the hall and I'm like, hey, what you reading now? And they will obviously respond in kind or whatever. As far as the program as a whole, my goal, as we talked about earlier, is to create an environment that's welcoming, that's inviting, that it is current. Our kids are not going to respond to a traditional hush-hush library. They are instant gratification kids, If something is a little bit more challenging or time-consuming or just requires a tiny bit of effort, they may not do it. So I set my center up very similar to stores that they would frequent, Books A Million, Barnes and Nobles. They are marketing experts. If they could market to the general public, then I can use that same concept to market to my students. So I try to create an environment that's very, very welcoming and customer oriented. So
This question is kind of similar. It's asked, how do you encourage struggling readers? So, I mean, I know high school, I feel like, is much more different than elementary. So how do you help high schoolers who struggle to read?
Well, in high school, okay, so an elementary student that is struggling to read, they're not offended by the content. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if you give them something that is on their reading level, even if the content is elementary, it's not an insult. So in a high school setting, the graphic novels, the mangas, those are excellent because the content sometimes is a bit high school,
Right.
but it's still written on a level that they can process and understand. They have
It's not
attention support.
intimidating.
Yeah, it's not intimidating for them. I still have titles that would have been in their middle schools. It's fine. We also serve a very high population. We have an entire wing here dedicated to special needs students. So we have a population that maybe needs a little bit lower level text. So I can kind of do that and incorporate it. But I think a lot of times your graphic novels are excellent sources or starting points for that because the content is not insulting.
Yeah.
And the text itself is not intimidating. So it's just a good combination.
What are some of the ways that the school library media specialist can promote and encourage professional reading among the faculty?
Like with your students, really. In the hallway, the book whisperer, Donna Millen, anyway, excellent. So, you just strike up conversations, copy room, hey, have you heard about, did you see the, you share with them in that way. We also provide, like, we are very blessed to work in the county that provides us with so many resources.
Yes, like Sora that you were just showing me.
Yeah,
Teachers can also use.
Yes, they can. And then as far as professional reading goes, even that, like our system, we don't really maintain a professional collection in here because each teacher has the professional collection in their classrooms at their disposal.
Pardon this interruption. Want to let everybody know, start preparing your